Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Oh wow, Overcomers with Our Word. Guys, I wanted to talk a little bit today about our natural state. We were born happy. Our natural state is love. I think back on the birth of my daughter. I think back on the births of my nephew, my firstborn nephew in the family that I had the opportunity to love on. And then years later, my second born nephew, that actually became, at that time in my life, I was a young teenager. He became more like a son to me in my heart than my own child. And I look back on those relationships with those babies and then look back on the relationship that I had when I birthed my own baby. So these three particular births in general. And what I can say about, and I think that's the beauty of us being able to have children, and then for those of us who live long enough to have grandchildren, to look back and put perspective on these things. Never once have I ever seen a baby coming out angry at the world. A baby knowing what it is to be mad or knowing what any of this negativity is. Our natural state is love. That all that baby wants is care and attention and to be loved. And all that parent or a good parent or a loving, sentient being wants to do is to give love to that child. And I remember, like I said, with my nephews and even with my daughter, how just holding the baby and rubbing their back and hearing them coo and cuddle, when you're cuddling with them, and make the little sounds, knowing that they're being pleased and loved, and they're knowing that that's what's happening, that beautiful exchange there. I had a girlfriend once that, I would talk to her on the phone sometimes as I was sitting in the rocker with my baby, and she would fall asleep, and she'd be like, "Go lay that baby down. You're going to spoil her, make her rotten." And I'm glad I didn't listen to that, because at that age, a baby has no idea really of what it means to be spoiled and rotten. What they know is they're being attended to and they're receiving love. And often when my baby was asleep, that was the best time for me to hold her, to listen to her breathing, to bond with her, to have her body connected to mine, to feel the warmth of that again, and to just be in that state of stillness and quietness. So if our natural state is love and we were born happy, what happens? At some point in time, one of two things happens. If we're living in a state of unforgiveness, the older our children become, we now begin to project our fears onto their lives. The things that broke us, the things that hurt us, the things that limited us, we now live guarded and in fear, not really realizing that our children are going to have their own life, their own experiences, and the people that did those things to us, unless they're still in our lives, that they probably won't endure those things. But the reality of it is, if we have not forgiven it, if we have not healed those wounds, if we have not transmitted our fear and pain into love, 9 times out of 10, those people and those things and situations will show up in our children's lives. Why? Because we will call it to them. Because we will live out of fear and victimhood instead of in a state of overcoming. So I was reminded of this story that I didn't spend a whole lot of time on in the Bible, but I remember the story of this young child, and I'll probably butcher the name, so I will spell it first. Mephibosheth. So maybe Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth in the Bible, and it's in 2 Samuel, you can look it up if you want to. He was the grandson of King Saul. So he was the son of Jonathan. If everybody knows the story of Jonathan and David, they were these best friends, but King Saul basically hated him. So and hated their friendship. In any event, when Mephibosheth was 5 years old, his father Jonathan was killed in battle. And the nurse, fearing that they would basically seek revenge and take it out on the son, which is kind of what they did back in war, which is still happening today. And I don't think we look at it in that terms. But if you look at a lot of the mafia gang style movies that we've watched, especially like the old Italian movies, when they put a hit on a family, or when one mafia family put a hit on another family and they took out the men, 9 times out of 10, if there were young boys in the family, they would really want to come back and wipe out all the boys. Why? For fear of when those kids became older and learned their history, they would come back and do what? Make good on their father's death. And then now they're going to come back against your family. There's also one movie that, if I can kind of recall, Colombiana, that they took out a family, but they left the little girl alive. And I guess not thinking that this girl will come back and learn the art of war and avenge her family's death. In any event, this nurse, fearing for the young boy's life, they said she grabbed him up and in haste, trying to escape, dropped him, and both of his feet were crippled. So that gave me to start thinking about how this young boy, due to no fault of his own, due to no experience that he put himself in, not even knowing what was going on around him, the war and stuff, the chaos that's, looming outside of him, but yet he was crippled, what? By the fear of someone else. And that's what happens with so many of us, or what has happened to so many of us. And then we, in turn, not realizing it mentally, in turn, pass those fears down to our children. So we're living from generation of fear, generation to generation to generation of fear. And what are the systems so good at putting in front of our eyes? The news systems, the education systems, the religious systems, the banking systems. They're all predicated upon fear. Why? Because if we can keep you in fear, you're people that are easily controlled. And if we can keep you in fear, 9 times out of 10, you will do the things to you that they lack the power to do themselves. This young boy was crippled by the fear of someone else. People, it is so important for us to forgive some of the ills and the traumas and tragedies of our past, so that we don't continue passing down in our lineage from our children to our grandchildren, or even how grandparents will parent their grandchildren. They, in turn, you may have a parent who has healed themselves of traumas and fears, but now that grandparent who is still caught in that old mindset is now still passing that on to the grandchildren. We have to get back to our natural state of love. Scripture says God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. That is when you know you're not operating from a place of love, power, and a sound mind, when we're operating in fear. Let's get back to our natural state. Our natural state is love. I'm here to remind you, you were born happy. And once you came into this physical plane, all of these other things are probably things you adopted that were outside of you, that may be crippling you from living your fullest, highest calling. Let's shake off every weight that hinders us. Let's let it go. Let's get back to our natural state of love. Until the next time, guys, I'm wishing us all, may we all be well.